Hello folks, today it is time for a video, or the kind of video that I enjoy doing very much, and that is a sit back with a cup of tea and talk about Warhammer lore kind of video. And unlike normal videos, where I have to spend upwards of 5 to 6 hours writing a script and doing some research, in this one I can just sit here, wax lyrical, like the good old days. Remember those days on the channel where I just come on and no preparation, I just talk out of my backside for half an hour and somehow get a few views? Well, that is one of those videos that we are doing today. So, if you don't know already by the title, we are discussing who are the best Primarchs in Warhammer, right? The best Primarchs, the guys who all Space Marines are derived from in some way, shape or form, right? One of the 20 original legions, well, the 18 surviving original legions, we will be discussing this week in terms of, I guess it's Horus Heresy lore, more than 40k lore, but who are the best Primarchs? Now, a few rules before we get started. When I say best Primarchs, I mean Primarchs, not Demon Primarchs, just Primarchs. And yes, Horus Ascended, to me, counts as a Demon Primarch. He is literally pumped up full of chaos juice, so he is literally not a demon, but he is definitely on the power level of a demon Primarch. He's corrupted by chaos, so we will not be taking that kind of Horus heresy or Horus himself into account, alright? So, it is Primarchs before their ascension, right at the end of the Great Crusade. Basically, the best versions of the Primarchs as they were supposed to be made. Alright? Cool. So I've got a little window here for you. Yes. Yes, it is Tier Maker. It is Tier Maker, simply because, I don't know, it's simply just the best site to do this on, I guess. We are going to go from Magnus upwards. So we're going to go backwards from Magnus here. And we're going to decide on which ranking these guys are. And then, if there's more than one in the S tier or A tier, or whatever highest tier we have, we will decide who are the best Primarchs in that category, or at least I will. And you can tell me down below in the comment section whether I've got it right or wrong. Alright, cool. So, boilerplate disclaimer 2, I'm not a huge, well, I know a lot about the lore, I think I've said that before. I've been a reader of Warhammer 30k and 40k for upwards of 20 years now. I know quite a lot about it, but I may have a brain fart, or I may have a time where I don't quite remember things correctly, or I get something wrong. Please just bear with me. These are just my thoughts right now, Northern Exile, on who the best Primarch is. Okay? That's literally all we're doing right now. We're not trying to upset anybody. We're not trying to get anybody to rend their garments. If you are the kind of guy who does that, not just over toy soldiers, but the lore of said toy soldiers, I don't know what to say to you, dude. Maybe you need to go outside and touch grass. Or get in the sea, if you don't want to do that. I don't know. So, let's start with Magnus, shall we? The guy who apparently did nothing wrong. Now, I'm not going to stick these guys all over the place. I'm going to put everybody in C until I decide what to do with them. Alright, so here we go. Magnus is up for discussion first. Now, in terms of, we're going to be doing this in a few ways. One of them is power level, okay? We're going to go in who's the best in combat, who's the best psychically, who's the best and all that kind of thing. We're going to go on aesthetics. We're going to go on Legion, how cool the Legion that they spawned is, right? And that will give us a regard of where they're going on the list. If we need to decide who the best person is in a certain tier, they will go head-to-head in a duel, and whoever wins that in my own brain will end up winning the overall tier. Alright, cool. So, Magnus, as a case in point, Thousand Suns fans, please don't panic too much, because I like psychic stuff. I do like psychic shenanigans, and I love the fact that Magnus is a very tragic Primarch. I do like me some tragic Primarchs. He is incredibly powerful in terms of his psychic ability, as we know. But what I can't get beyond is any time he faces any sort of pushback from one of his Primarch brothers, he's essentially annihilated. Every time. Alright? Happened with Leman Russ, no problem. Happened with him. Happened with Vulcan in the webway as well, you know. Literally got his shit pushed in by Vulcan, which is a feat in itself, alright? Vulcan's very strong, but I wouldn't put him on the top tier of combat Primarchs, would you? No. The problem with Magnus is that his powers are, shall we say, indefinable. He is incredibly powerful as a Psyker, and we're told he's the most powerful Psyker of all the Primarchs, and so in being so, he should be the most powerful Psyker in the setting, bar the Emperor, bar none, right? You know? Then why in the hell is he losing all of these fights? Is he choosing to fight within himself? If that's the case, this is a really well-written character. If that's the case. If he's choosing to fight within himself because he doesn't want to hurt his brothers, I get it, alright? I get it. The one thing that really does drag up Magnus for me was the final confrontation with the Emperor in the throne room, where he is given a choice to come back to be at the Emperor's side, but he has to give up his sons to do so, because they're too corrupted. And the Emperor is actually saying, no, what you're going to do is lead the Grey Knights, right? So the Grey Knights are going to be a thing against Chaos, and Magnus is going to be their first pseudo-supreme Grand Master, right? Probably the only Grand Master is going to be Magnus from now on. Obviously, Magnus refuses, and says no, and goes and does his own thing, and Vulcan punches him in the face, and they get into a fight, right? Now, again, I love some tragic Primarchs, but there are a few inconsistencies with Magnus' story that also I'd like to highlight in this talking about him. The first thing I'd like to do is the burning of Prospero, where he decides to take his punishment like a good boy, and basically sabotages his own legion against the Space Wolves. Because no matter how many times Space Wolves fans will tell you that this was the case, and that they beat the Thousand Suns fair and square, no they didn't, right? They had a lot of help, many from Magnus, shutting down all of the defences. What should have happened, and we're told this in the Black Legion books, by the way, by Iskandar Khan, a very good book by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, who loves Chaos, by the way. He loves Chaos. And he turns round and says, no, I was a part of the Thousand Suns, as Iskandar Khan, and if we weren't sabotaged by our own father, 2 legions would have died that day. We would have killed each other, because 1 legion cannot just kill another. I completely agree. I completely agree. 1 legion cannot just steamroll another. Otherwise, why are we even playing the Horus Heresy board game? Why are we even playing that as a thing? Right? Okay, so Magnus, for me, is going to go somewhere in B tier, because I don't want to be around here all day, so I'm going to put him in B tier. And he's there on his psychic merit. Because every time he's asked to make a decision logically, he gets it wrong. Almost entirely wrong every time. So he's going to go in B. Alright? He's going to go there. He's still a good Primarch, don't get me wrong. He's cool. I love me some shenanigans when it comes to, you know, psychic powers and tragic heroes and things. Very nice. I'm generally a well-written character in terms of his motivations and stuff, but just because he's well-written doesn't mean he's a good person or a good Primarch. And he's there on the quality of his writing and his psychic powers. Everything else stops him from the S and A tier. Right? He makes no real logical decisions. He keeps getting beaten by other Primarchs. Even in theatres where he should have the advantage, he loses. Okay? Can't really say much more about him than that. Anyway, Vulcan is next, ladies and gents. Vulcan is next. The guy who beat up Magnus in the one of the last Horus Heresy books. Vulcan, to me, I'm sorry guys, I don't get him. I don't get the appeal. I just don't. I think he's the most boringest of boring Primarchs, for the most boringest of boring legions. But to be fair, the Salamanders got a hell of a kicking in the Horus Heresy books. They literally are in it for 5 minutes. Even Vulcan's own novels, like Old Earth and things like that, aren't really about the Salamanders. They're about Vulcan's story, you know? So the Salamanders are given one hell of a shoeing by the Horus Heresy. But Here's the thing about the Salamanders that I think is their main strength, okay? I actually think the Salamanders are the self-insert of 40k and 30k. What I mean by that is, we only have a few vague things in the lore about what they do and how they do it, you know? Especially back in the day. Alright, yeah, we've got the fact that they're all really good smiths, that they love fire, and they got all these, like, nocturnal cults and things like that. That's cool. No, that's fine. But there's a lot of wiggle room there for the fans, the people who mean the most, to make their own thing of the Salamanders. Do you want them to be completely obsessed with melter weapons? Go for it. Do you want them to be an assault-based legion that just does all that kind of stuff? Go for it. Do you want them to be in the 40k setting? Do you want to do a successor chapter of the Salamanders that's really, really, really grim and horrible? Again, go for it. They are literally the self-insert of 40k, and they're almost left blank for a reason, in my mind. The problem therein is, Vulcan has next to no agency in the Horus Heresy story at all. In his own story, he has no agency. He turns up at Istvan, is knocked unconscious, is taken by Konrad Curze, is tortured for a long time, eventually gets back up again in the Unremembered Empire, starts causing ruckuses, eventually makes his way to Terra because he's told to, right? Guards the Emperor because he's told to, and then fights Magnus because he's told to. Vulcan very rarely makes any decisions of his own. And that's because, for some reason, Games Workshop looked at the Salamanders and said, we won't really do much background on them because they can be a chapter or a legion that people can do their own thing in. And that's fine. That's fine to me. It's okay. It's a good idea. Issue is, a Primarch of said legion is not going to have his own story. He's going to be a reactionary figure, and that's what Vulcan is. So for me, he's not really going to go anywhere above B tier. Alright? He has to go in B tier. In fact, no, he doesn't. He doesn't have to go in B tier, because even though he beats Magnus, beating Magnus is no real feat for a Primarch. Okay? You know? Iskandar Kaon, again, going back to the Black Legion novels, that guy beats Magnus. He needs a Space Marine. He forces Magnus to kneel with his own psychic power, and he's a Space Marine. Alright? So beating Magnus in a one-on-one duel isn't really something that's going to get you a lot of props in this lore video, unfortunately. So I think Vulcan's going to stay where he is. He's going to stay in C, simply because there's no real negatives to him in terms of, you know, who he is or what he does. In terms of his agency, I guess that would be a negative. But everything else, he's just meh. He's just there. Vulcan's just there, you know. I'm very tempted to put him in D. Do you know what? I'm doing it. Just for the sake of a spicy, I'm going to put him in D. He's just not for me. I like my characters to do things and to have a brain. You know, is what it is. There's also one thing with Vulcan in the last Horus Heresy novels, where he's standing in front of Malcador. And Malcador's own psychic people. Like, Malcador this time is sitting on the Golden Throne, right? And Malcador's own psychic people are telling Vulcan, hey dude, I think Malcador's trying to tell us something, because he is, right? He's trying to tell them something. He can't, because he's wrapped by the Golden Throne's energies. And Vulcan just goes, no he isn't. And just moves on. Moves on with his day. What? Do you have a brain? These people know him better than anybody else. They know what he's doing. Right? They know he's trying to tell them something. Don't just disregard them. He doesn't have a brain, and for that reason he's going in D tier. There we go. Horus, the main man, who has an entire setting dedicated to him. This is going to be a shock. Alright? Because pre-Ascension Horus is more of a Sun Tzu for me. Right? He's more of a general. He's more of a leader. He's not really a duelist. He's incredibly powerful, don't get me wrong. And there's no way he's going in B tier. He's going in S or A tier. In terms of combat duelist, he's incredible. He's in the top 6, maybe. I would say top 6. But it's his whole story as a whole. I'm not going to go into it here. Go and read the Horus Heresy series. It's all about him, right? The main part of it is about him. The whole crux of the entire story is him. Alright? Now, in terms of being a leader, in terms of being an absolutely great general, he would be an S tier for me. This is a guy who has wheels within wheels within wheels. Alright? He's a walking Art of War by Sun Tzu. That's what he is. Okay? He's a guy who's adaptable. I would actually put him as a general on par with Guilliman and on par with any of the other top-level generals in the Horus Heresy setting. To me, the top generals in terms of the Primarchs are Perturabo, for me, Dorn, Guilliman, and probably Horus. I wouldn't put L. Johnson in there. I know that's controversial, but L. Johnson for me is more of a weapon than a general. He's more of a weapon. So those are the best in terms of generals. And in terms of that group, I would actually put Horus near the top or at the top of that small group. So I've Perturabo, Dorn, Guilliman, and Horus. I would actually put him near the top. And he is top in a few things. In terms of attacking, being an attacking general, attacking force, Horus is number one, right? He's the best attacking legion with the best attacking Primarch of being aggressive and going for the throat in these things. But again, there are other ways in which he falls down. He's not a great combat Primarch, and as far as I'm concerned, he's in the top 6, maybe. All right, combat Primarchs. Let's look at them. We've got Fulgrim, Sanguinius, L. Johnson, right? Angron, Curze, Russ, Khan. Is he really better than those? I'd put him in the middle of that bracket. I'd put him in the middle of that bracket, unfortunately, for him. So he's going to go in A tier. Simply because natural generalship talent, definitely one of the top Primarchs, if not the top Primarch. In terms of combat, he's of the best combat Primarchs, he's in the middle there, right? So that means he's not in S tier. He can't be in S tier. Okay, it's just where we're just going to end up. He's extremely powerful, extremely cool. His story is amazing, but pre-Ascension Horus is A tier. Post-Ascension Horus is S tier and wins his entire list hands down. You know, hands down in every way, shape, or form. The only thing I would say I had a hang up on with post-Ascension Horus was the fact that he was losing his mind. But then that's revealed to be a big ruse, and that he should have won the Horus Heresy. That's been revealed in recent books, right? That the whole him losing his mind thing wasn't even real. Wasn't even real. He did that to sucker everybody in to play his game. He played a piece of Machiavellian chess, 4D chess, and played everybody for suckers, and he should have won the Horus Heresy. I'll be very interested to see the reasons Dan Abnett comes up with in Book 3 of why he doesn't win. You know? Because he should beat the Emperor. It's been set up that way as well. But pre-Ascension Horus is A tier. A tier for me. Which shows you how difficult it is to get into the S tier, if anything. Corvus Corax next. Now, okay. There are certain fallbacks to 40k for me. I know we're discussing 30k for the most part, but there are certain fallbacks to 40k that I don't like. And that is that there are certain armies in 40k who are so meme-ish that they don't really belong there. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are certain armies in 40k who don't even act like they should be in the same setting as everybody else. Corvus Corax is one of those Primarchs in Horus Heresy. It's a bit too on the nose for me, what he is. A bit too on the nose. You know, I like ravens. I like Edgar Allan Poe. I'm very sad. That's right, Corvus Corax. I mean, you know, the guy quotes Edgar Allan Poe as his last line in the setting. That's lame as fuck, dude. That's the kind of thing a GCSE English student would write. Literally. You know? Literally. That is fan fiction nonsense. That. And that's coming from a guy who does fan fiction for 40k. But Corvus Corax saying that is cringe. I just want to get that out the way. His Legion, very cool. Love the Raven Guard. Think they're awesome. I think that there is a place for stealth Space Marines. I know a lot of people don't, but I think there is. You know, the Raptors are a good case in point. The Carcharodons again. You know, the Void Talons, my own chapter, are very, very, very stealthy in terms of their outlook when they're. Oops, sorry, that's my. I've got a thing there. Oh, if you click anywhere on the side, it brings up an ad. Okay. Even the Void Talons themselves are very, very, very much a stealth-oriented chapter when they're in the Void, when they're on their own ships. I think there is a place in the setting for it. Problem is, he's a bit of an emo. It's just what he is. He's a bit of an emo. He's essentially loyalist Konrad Curze. I mean, look at them. Look at them next to each other. Look at them. He's essentially loyalist Konrad Curze, right in the centre of your screen there. That's just what he is. And when you're literally just that, I just don't see... The bad guy is always more interesting than the good guy in this factoid here. One thing I really like about Corax is he seems to see through other people very easily. I like that as a thing. But again, like most of the legions who suffered the most on Istvan, these guys aren't really given much airtime to discuss their own feelings. I know Corvus Corax has his own novel. I've read it. It's fine. It's okay. But I just don't... How'd I put it? I don't think they really go into who he is as a person enough in that book. We understand intrinsically the flaws and the capabilities of people like Fulgrim. I'll tell you right now, the people who the Horus Heresy did good, you know, were Horus, Fulgrim, Perturabo, Dorn, and that might be it. That might be it, actually. Yeah, maybe Lorgar. But that's it. That's literally it. Like, everybody else is kind of an enigma still. Even Sanguinius, kind of an enigma still. Corvus Corax, for me, is one of those people. He got one novel, maybe two, if you count the other one. And in that, we didn't really see him explored. Events were happening around him that made him react to them in a different way. Most of the guys who got a pasting at Istvan ended up becoming reactionary. They ended up reacting to the plot rather than being drivers of the plot. And it's an understandable thing. Most of their legions are now gone. So I understand what they're doing there. But also, hey, I've got to play the cards that I'm dealt. And for me, Corvus Corax is a C-tier Primarch. You know, in terms of combat ability, very good. You know, I would put him at the bottom end of the Primarchs who are good at combat. Alright? Corvus Corax would easily beat on people like Lorgar, Guilliman maybe, Alpharius. He would easily beat on them, right? The bottom tier of combat Primarchs. But in terms of the actual big Gs, the Fulgrims, your Konrad Curzes, your Leman Russes, you know, this guy's going to get his head wrecked. He's going to get bodied by Primarchs like that, in my opinion. So, even in terms of his combat ability, he's mid-level for me, and that's where he's going to be. And in terms of his actual story, he's mid-level. That's where he's going to be. He's above Vulcan because he's been shown to beat up other Primarchs, even if those other Primarchs were Lorgar and Guilliman, I think, once, right? So, yeah. No, not Guilliman. Guilliman was one who was fighting Lorgar. Who else did he fight? Anyway, he beat up Lorgar, so he's got one win against the Primarch under his belt. And even Konrad Curze crossed blades with him and didn't want to fight. So that's a win in itself. Konrad Curze loves dueling, loves fighting other Primarchs. Mainly because he's fighting from an unfair advantage, because you can see into the future. But still. I'd put him above Vulcan for that reason. Alright? Still not a very interesting Primarch when it comes to this kind of thing, but, you know, is what it is. Next, Mortarion. Let's stick him in and let's judge Mortarion. Now, again, another Primarch who, for me, is really on the nose in terms of his own, shall we say, inspirations, right? He's the Grim fucking Reaper, dude. He's the Grim Reaper. That's what he is. I think they missed a big opportunity with Mortarion to make him a beast. He's the fucking Grim Reaper. Alright? I would actually have this guy, if I was writing him, be this, enigmatic, shadow-loving, mental dude from a radioactive wasteland world who literally can't be killed. And in doing that, he pushes through almost any... He can't be beaten in a duel. That's why I would write him. Doesn't matter what you do to him, he just regenerates and comes back. He takes all that pain onto himself and comes back. I would have Mortarion be the Primarch that nobody can beat. Alright? He's not the best duelist. You just can't kill him. He regenerates that quickly. You just cannot kill him. Unlike Vulcan, who can be put down, Mortarion, in my own writing, my own head, can't. He's the Lord of Death, for God's sake. Right? He is an anomaly. And I would actually have the Emperor kind of fear him, because he knows we can't damage Mortarion. We can slow him down, but we can't damage him, because something's gone wrong in his makeup. He was meant to be a perpetual, something's gone wrong, and now we've got this fucking Grim Reaper walking around, right? Who literally can just warp elsewhere and do what he wants to do. I think one of the big things that they got wrong with Mortarion's character was that they made him hate Psykers. That's silly, considering what he becomes and what he starts to use, and all of the cool things he could have been doing if he embraced his psychic potential, right? Again, there are certain Primarchs that I understand shouldn't like psychic things. Angron, Perturabo, yeah, okay. Dorn, yes, cool, get it, doesn't like Psykers. Mortarion, though? Come on, dude. He should have been, not well into Psykers, but just be, neutral. Well, yeah, Psykers are Psykers, I don't care, I can't be killed by it anyway, so doesn't matter, He should be the Primarch of not giving fucks. I don't give a fuck. Whatsoever. I don't care. Nothing can kill me. My sons are all, lesser versions of me, which means they're the most hard-to-kill legion in the galaxy. We just don't care. We're stoic, we come at you, we walk in a straight line, we are inevitable. That should have been the Death Guard, but it wasn't, because Games Workshop tried to be fucking clever and make Mortarion somebody who doesn't like Psykers, and make all of his legion, essentially, sweaty, farting monsters. And, to me, that does him a bit of a disservice, and the Death Guard as a whole. Again, for me, before Ascension, Combat Primarch, he's in the C tier. He's not one of the big boys in terms of being a Combat Primarch. In terms of a general, C tier, he's not that good of a general. He just walks forward in a straight line and gets hammered every single time, right? And in terms of lore, the story itself, again, C tier. It could have been A, could have been S, but Games Workshop decided to make him not like Psykers, and decided to take his really cool story at the start and kind of make him a bit of a joke, to be honest with you. Not my kind of a guy at all. I just... Yeah. And he becomes a bit of a pawn. When he starts talking to Magnus and others in the Horus Heresy, he's just a pawn. That's all he is. He's a pawn who wants to be liked. And that's not an engaging character to me. It's not even tragic. It's just, really, dude? You're just that much of a moron? Okay, fine. Everybody manipulates Mortarion. Everybody. Fucking Angron could probably manipulate Mortarion. He's that gullible, right? I don't know. Again, this isn't 40k Mortarion, and this isn't Ascended Mortarion. This is normal Mortarion. For me, he's a C-class Primarch. That's where he is. Sorry, guys. Guilliman. Alright. This is going to be an interesting one. Because Guilliman, as a combat Primarch, is a bit of a joke. I'm not going to lie. If you struggle to beat Lorgar, you're a bit of a joke. I mean, I'm just saying. Now, pre-ascendant Lorgar, and you're struggling to beat him, you're a bit of a joke. This guy's just throwing books at you and crying, and you still can't beat him. Yeah, alright. This guy barely survives an assassination attempt by normal Space Marines in the heart of his own fortress. Does that scream Great General to you? Doesn't to me. All duelist. What's he doing? Nearly getting killed by normal Space Marines. It's ridiculous. I know writers can do oversights every now and again, but come on, dude. Right? Nearly every Primarch Guilliman faces, he gets battered. And the one win he gets in 40k against Magnus is because somehow, I don't know how he does it, right? I've reread the Terran Crusade, and I've never gotten my head around how he does it. Okay? It's MacGuffin after MacGuffin after MacGuffin after MacGuffin to get him out of harm's way and to bypass Magnus. Because Magnus can pull fucking starships out the sky, right? This is the kind of level we're dealing with. And that's the fault with Magnus, isn't it? He's that powerful, they need to nerf him all the time. And when you nerf somebody, normally a writer goes too far in its nerfing, which is what happens with Magnus quite a lot. But Guilliman, you know, plot armor aside, not a very good combat Primarch. I would put him in a D tier of combat Primarchs. I'm going to be quite honest. You know, sorry, that's where he is. But that's not what his strength is. His strength is on the battlefield. And in terms of being a, shall we say, general of among the Primarchs, I would put him on the lower end of the elite tier of general Primarchs. So, you've got Horus, you got Guilliman, you got Perturabo, you got Dorn. Alright, those are your four main general Primarchs. The ones who lead and adjudicate armies around them. Right? Push and pull apart of enemy forces around them. Those are the main generalship Primarchs. I would put him as number 4 on that list. Alright? Maybe number 2. No, sorry, maybe number 3. Maybe number 3. But I can't, because Horus is amazing, as was shown in the Horus Heresy, as a general. So's Perturabo. The guy wins the fucking Siege of Terror. Yes, he did win it. I will cover that later. And Dorn is at the Siege of Terror as well. Does an amazing job at the Siege of Terror as a general. Horus, yeah, I mean, Guilliman's not on that, in that league, shall we say. He's 4th out of 4. Of the best generalship Primarchs, don't forget, he's 4 out of 4. Alright? He's still a better general than everybody else not on that list. So I'm not saying he's a bad general, he's not. But of the elite guys, the top dudes, you want leading your armies, he's number 4. Out of the 4 that are there. So, as much as I don't want to do this, he levels out to me in D tier. I don't really want to use 40k as this huge thing. But if we're going on Horus Heresy, he's in D tier. Alright? But at a second glance, I don't really want to use 40k, but we're going to have to, because Guilliman has an advantage. In that most of the current 40k setting is about Roboute Guilliman. So for all of his feats in the current setting, in the current 40k setting, because this isn't just a 30k list, right? This is a list of what the Primarchs are at the height of their powers before Chaos Corruption. Well, Guilliman is never corrupted by Chaos, as far as we know. So, he would actually go back into C tier, and he's going to push and go into B tier. That's where he is. So in terms of Horus Heresy, he's D tier. Solid D, bottom end of D. He might even be in E tier, because he makes a lot of stupid decisions in the Horus Heresy. He might even be in E tier as a Horus Heresy Primarch. But his deeds and feats, even if they are all plot armor, even if they are just Games Workshop sucking him off, they still get him into B tier. Alright? His feat of generalship bump him back up into B tier from what he does in the 40k setting. And it's too much to go over, right? He beats Magnus somehow. He beats Mortarion, Ascended Mortarion, with a lot of help from the Emperor. He essentially mantles the Emperor's power to beat him. So it's not really Guilliman doing it, but still he's there, right? Yeah, and all of the other wars and things that he's holding the Imperium together almost single-handedly, or so we're told. I don't agree with that, but that's what Games Workshop say. So he's in B tier, alright? And that's all you're getting out of me, Ultramarines fans. Consider yourselves lucky. I don't hate Ultramarines, by the way. I think they're great. I just, I don't think Guilliman's a very good Primarch. Just saying. He's a very good character, but he's not a very good Primarch. Alright? Speaking of good Primarchs, the Khan, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm going to get my main bugbear with Jaghatai Khan out the way right up front. Right up front here. His story is literally, I've said it before, Genghis Khan. If you're a student of history, even at GCSE level, and you've read about the Mongol Empire, you know Jaghatai Khan's story from start to finish. Almost identical. Alright? Before he joins the Great Crusade. His legion is very derivative. It's literally Mongols in space. I don't like that kind of thing. It rubs me up the wrong way. It's very low effort. It's like the writers couldn't be arsed and just said, right, we'll just have a Mongol Asian faction as one of the legions. That'd be cool. And they just did that, and here is Jaghatai Khan, right? I don't like it. Don't get on with it. Not my kind of thing. So that is why his starting level for me will be in D tier. Now, don't jump down my throat just yet. That is where we're going with his negatives. Because in terms of negatives, that's it. It's a hell of a negative, don't get me wrong. And it whacks you in D tier straight away. But Jaghatai Khan does enough to get out of there and then some. Alright? Because Jaghatai Khan, in terms of being a general, is actually just outside of that top 4 group. I'd put him 5th or 6th. Right? In terms of being a general. Why? Because he's an amazing attacker. He can see the weak points in an enemy line and push straight towards it with everything that he has in terms of his bikes, in terms of his light troops and things like that. He's a very, very, very good skirmisher. He's very good at the one thing he does. That's skirmishing and fast attack. That's what he does. And he's very good at it. So, automatically, he's just outside of the top tier in terms of generals, and that would put him in C tier. Alright? So we're whacking him up to C tier for his skills as a general. Now, in terms of a combat Primarch, we haven't really looked at who the best of the best are, but the Khan is amongst that group. Top level combat Primarchs, for me, Fulgrim, Sanguinius, L. Johnson, Angron, Curze, Russ, Horus, and Khan. Those are the 8. It's a much bigger group than the generals, right? Because we see it's something that's not as intangible. Being a good general is a matter of opinion, you know. Being a good fighter is a matter of fact. You can just see how the styles are going to clash against each other, and in certain instances you can see what Primarchs beat what Primarchs, right? So, out of those 8, I would say the Khan is in the top 4. Easily top 4. I'd put him above Russ. Right? And that's saying a lot. I'm going to put him above Russ. I'm going to put him at number 3 in combat Primarchs. Which, you know, it's difficult for me because I like L. Johnson. I think he's a really cool Primarch. But I think he's number 3. Being a number 3 combat Primarch, for me, and a swordsman at that, I love a good sword, me, puts you in A tier. He's up there with Horus as an A tier level Primarch for me. So him himself, he goes all the way from D up to A. His Legion has nothing to do with that. His Legion and Chapter are the reason why it's D to start with. Because I just don't like factions that take too much inspiration from history that it becomes lazy. The White Scars are an amazing aesthetic chapter. I really like them. And I like certain things about what they do, or that they go on hunts and things like that. I love it. But at the same time, guys, it's just a bit derivative, right? It's just a bit, yeah, you're Mongols in space. I get it, man. Okay, cool. You know, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. Again, I am very complex feelings towards the White Scars, right? I love them as a force. But as an actual, you know, I love them as a force in the setting, right? But on the writing room floor, I don't like them at all. You know? That's why they were D. But Khan himself, A tier Primarch. Which should show you how I feel about the Scars. But anyway. Oh, God. Here we go. Here we go. This fucking guy. Right. I'm going to level with you guys. I personally do not like Leman Russ. Personally. I think he's a moron. I think he's a hypocrite. Okay? This literal guy, in one scene in the Horus Heresy, he's deriding Lorgar when he comes up in conversation for having a tarot deck, whilst rolling fucking knuckle bones. Trying to divine fate. He's a fucking moron. And a hypocrite. Okay? He thinks he knows best. All the time. Literally. The Horus Heresy would have been won in a flash. This is how much respect I have for him as a warrior. And his legion as warriors. If they were on Terra when Horus arrived, the heresy would have been over long before the Emperor ever had to get up off his fucking throne. Long before. Alright? Russ being there with his legion would have just turned the tide. It would have been one legion too many for the traitor legions to handle. Because Russ is that good. He's that good. In terms of a combat Primarch, he's that good. Alright? He's literally that good. As a force of nature on the battlefield, fuck all's touching Russ. Let's be honest, right? The thing is, he thinks he knows best, and so he tells everybody to fuck off. He goes and tries to assassinate Horus on his own, for the glory of it, and ends up getting his shit pushed in. And is unconscious for the rest of the Horus Heresy. Well done, Wolfman. Well done to you. You fucked everything up for everybody. Brilliant. Thank you. I mean, Jesus. That's the one main thing I don't like him for. The one main thing. I actually kind of liked him up until that decision. I think it's in Vengeful Spirit. Up until that decision, I kind of liked him. I thought, you know what, this guy's quite funny. I like the way this guy talks. He's playing. I think it's not Regicide, but it's a board game with Malkador, and he ends up playing against Garviel Loken, and he's like a curmudgeonly old uncle, right? Playing. Let's say like Malkador is Loken's dad. He's not, but you know, his adoptive dad, right? And he's like, hey son, why don't you play against your uncle Russ? And Russ is like, oh, I don't want to play him. I don't want to play him, waste of time. Alright, I'll play him. And then he plays him. And he beats him and he goes, you don't learn quick enough. And because he thinks Loken's thick, he turns around to Malkador right in front of him and goes, he doesn't learn quick enough. Like, it just really... And it's like, he's literally the grumpy uncle. And I was like, I'm on board with this guy. I really like this guy. And then he makes the most stupid decisions ever in Horus Heresy. And also, this is the guy who, on just the barest say-so from Horus, went to annihilate the Thousand Sons Legion. That's a brother legion you've got there. There's no Horus Heresy yet, right? This is a brother legion. Without cross-checking or fact-checking or anything, he's told by Horus, go and kill the Thousand Sons. That's what the Emperor wanted. Even Horus has been acting shady at this point. Russ goes, okay, and just goes and does it. Doesn't cross-check, doesn't ask, doesn't go back to the Emperor and say, were these your orders? He just fucking does it. Alright? He doesn't even go back to Horus and say, listen, that's an odd order you've just given me. Are you sure? What are the reasons why? Because if I'm going to execute a man, I want to know why. Because Russ should know as well, attacking the Thousand Sons is a fucking death sentence. Or at least it should be if Magnus wasn't crying into his little leotard that day, right? But normally, Russ thinks, I'm taking my legion into a slaughter here. I want to know I'm doing it for the right reasons. He doesn't, he goes straight at it, and he gets rewarded for it. He gets his ego puffed up for it, right? And that's why I don't like him. He gets away with consequences all of the time, just like his Legion does, and just like his chapter does. That's the reason why I don't like Space Wolves, because unlike the other really cringe chapters out there, your White Scars, people like that, right, who are a bit over the top in their historical leanings, unlike those, the setting bends over backwards. It breaks its own back to accommodate the Space Wolves and Russ and his stupid fucking decisions. Every time. It breaks its own back to accommodate them, and I don't like them. That's why. Alright? Nothing against you if you play the Space Wolves. I know it comes up a lot in the Hobby Nightmares that a lot of Space Wolves players are dickheads. That's not my fault. I just get sent those. They come in, and again, there's a good cure for that. Curate your own community and stop being fucking dickheads. That'll be my suggestion, right? But, you know, is what it is. I know a lot of nice Space Wolf players. I just don't get the appeal of the Chapter and the Legion as they are. They're cringe. They're just... Every single time I see the Space Bears, right? I look at the Space Wolves and weep. Because that's what you could be. That's a fucking cool chapter right there. Right? Go and look them up. Go and look them up. Look up 40k Space Bears. Mate, that's what you could be. Nice, grounded lore, right? Winter theme. You're not overly Viking or overly wolfy, right? Not everything in the Space Bears arsenal is called Bear Claw or Bear Bolter or Bear this or Bear that. No. But not Space Wolves. Literally, they break the setting. They're so ridiculous. They have Space Marines riding giant wolves. It's retarded. They break everything. They're like a big black hole at the centre of the setting, pulling out all of the seriousness. Pulling it all out. All the time. Right? So in terms of Combat Primarch, Russ would be an A tier for Combat Primarch. But I'm getting sick even putting him there. So he's going to be back down in C tier. Alright? Because every other thing apart from combat, he's shit. He's genuinely shit. We're given direct evidence. Everything apart from combat, he's shit. He's terrible. Alright? We're given empirical evidence that he's terrible. I've mentioned a few of them, right? Disregarding people and going after Horus on his own. Going after the Thousand Sons on the bare say-so of a guy whose loyalty, even in Russ's own head, in his own chapters, he's calling Horus's loyalty into question and does it anyway! He's a retard, he's a moron, and he shouldn't be in the top tier. Sorry. Really sorry, but he's not there. He's not there for me. Okay? It may trigger you that he's below Magnus. Sorry, but I've given him reasons why. You know, I've given him reasons why. Magnus still has a lot of prevailing good parts to him. But my God, you know, the brain of Russ drags him down from A tier to C tier. You know? Just as the coolness and the combat prowess and the general attitude and aesthetic of Khan pulls him from D tier to A tier, Russ goes from A tier to C tier for me, for his own personality and the way he thinks. I mean, Khan has the greatest, literally the greatest comeback ever in one of these novels with Fulgrim. You know, when Fulgrim says, "I hear you do strange things to your bikes," he says, "Well, I hear you do strange things to your warriors." Right? Just the greatest put down ever. That would get you in B tier on its own, right? Khan being a stoic, on his own, cool guy, getting on with it, but ultimately loyal dude, means more to me. He has much more complexity and depth to him than Russ ever does. Ever. That's why combat prowess keeps Russ at C tier. If he wasn't such a tank and a beast in combat, he may have been in E or lower for me. Alright? He's just a walking fucking meme. And it's not my thing. Anyway, Alpharius is next. Speaking of memes, the reason... the I am Alpharius stuff, I'm going to put him there for now. He's not going to stay there. But just for that fucking meme, and the people who stay it all of the time, And the fact that they got it from several different other places that you know, it's 40k copying other things again, you know. But the I am Alpharius stuff, yeah, that can stay in E for now. And in terms of his combat prowess, unfortunately, again, he's nowhere near top tier. He's been killed multiple times by multiple different Primarchs. In fact, it's the strength of his legion that's going to pull Alpharius up rather than himself. He is the inverse of Leman Russ, right? So, in terms of he himself, yeah, he's not a great Primarch. And he's not even a great Primarch in terms of strategy. He is a spy. He is an informant. He is a iconoclast. That's what Alpharius is. And, again, I like the insidiousness of the Alpha Legion. I think they're really, really, really cool. And I think the way Alpharius fits into that Legion is also extremely, extremely cool. So, I am hovering, putting Alpharius in C tier or B tier. The reason why this isn't going to be such a long thing to go over is because Alpharius, for me, in all honesty, you know, what do we really know about him? You know, we know now he was probably the first founder of the Primarchs. We know that now, most likely. But even the cool parts of his lore, like that, like literally the first Primarch to be found before Horus in Top Secret, even that is, because of his very nature, isn't set in stone as lore, you know? The very fact of 40k being a setting without concrete lore is tied up in Alpharius, right? If that was true, if the story of him being the first found Primarch, which is a great story, very well written, and Alpharius comes across very cleverly in that, if that was true, he would be in B tier, pushing A tier. That's where he would be. But because it's not, he's in C tier, right? There is such a thing as being too memeified for your own good. And the Alpha Legion and Alpharius are there. He's not a very good Primarch. He's a pretty good general, right? I would stick him just outside of the top 4 or 5, you know, in terms of being a general. He's a middling Primarch, is what he is. He's just a middling Primarch. And that's where he's going to stay. If that origin story was true, it would lend so much more weight and coolness and power to his character that he would then be in B pushing A. But it's not. Because why? Because we have to have more memes about the fucking Alpha Legion being secret. So yes, he's staying in C tier. That's where he is. Konrad Curze. Konrad Curze. Alright. Okay. Speaking of combat Primarchs. Konrad Curze is a fucking beast, dude. I'm gonna come out and say it. I think taking away all of the magical things, like Sanguinius' wings and shit, Konrad Curze is the best combat Primarch. I'm just gonna say it. Pains me to say it, because generally he's just Batman in space. But, again, Konrad Curze is somebody who's had a lot of, shall we say, inspiration, quote unquote, from certain DC comics and other things thrown his way, but they've made it its own thing. Konrad Curze is his own guy. I said Batman in space quite flippantly there, but I don't think he actually resembles him that much. Okay? I think Edgar Allan Poe over there in fucking Corax is a lot less interesting than Konrad Curze, even though they're the two sides of the same coin, really. You know? Him and Sanguinius as well, two sides of the same coin. But I'm using Corax because they are very, very, very similar in their upbringing and all that sort of stuff. But Curze is a lot more interesting. He has flaws, but he has. If you've never seen the Amber King's video on Konrad Curze, go and watch it. All right, go and watch it. You'll get what I'm saying. Konrad Curze has depth. You understand where he's coming from. And if you're a good person and you follow the lore, you may be frightened of Konrad Curze, but Konrad Curze would never fucking touch you. If you're an innocent person and you've not done anything wrong, right, and you're being mugged or graped or whatever, right, Konrad Curze is the guy you want around. He would murder shit the guy who's doing that to you. Whoever's doing that to you. Absolutely. You want vengeance. You want revenge. You want a rebalancing of justice. Konrad Curze, at least at the start, that's exactly what he was. The fun thing about Curze is he loses his way as well. He literally loses his way as time goes on. And that's really interesting. The way that his legion gets corrupted as well, again, very interesting. The way that Nostromo, the planet, you know, they start sending, you know, grapists and other people like that into his legion, and it corrupts it. So he ends up hating his own legion, and it drives him mad. And he has foresight as well. There's all these different layers that make him an incredibly interesting Primarch to read about. And then, on top of all of that, here's the other thing about Konrad Curze. Just because he's in terms of being a guy of justice, he is black and white. There is a short story out there of a young woman who tries to commit suicide on Nostromo when Curze is ruling the planet, and she fails. But of course, suicide is against the law, and so Curze goes and tortures her to death. Even when she tells him, "No, I want to live now. I made a mistake," he says, "I don't care. I don't care. You broke the law. So this is what you get." And he tortures her to death. Yeah, that's a complex villain right there. That is a complex fucking villain. A very well-written, complex villain. Now, that's all of his character stuff. His Legion also, very cool. Alright, they got the Night Lords Omnibus and all that sort of stuff going for them. They are S-tier Legion, as far as I'm concerned. Very cool. They take the aesthetic of the bat wings and the horrid shit and things like that, and they turn it up to 11, and they make it their own. Right? They take all the Batman stuff. They take all the memes that you could throw at them. There are hardly any memes of Konrad Curze and the Night Lords. Alright? The I am the Night stuff, yeah, fine, okay, cool. But aside from that, you don't really see any funny memes of the Night Lords. I think Aaron Dembski-Bowden did a lot for them with his trilogy of books, don't get me wrong. But the Legion itself, brilliant. S-tier Legion. Combat now. Combat. We've done. He's not a very good general, nor does he need to be, right? He's in the top. He's nowhere near the top as being a general. He doesn't do generalship, right? That's not where his strength lies. But in terms of his character, I would give that S-tier for his character. For himself, right? For his Legion and how interesting it is. And how corrupt and warped and tragic it is. S-tier again. For storytelling. In terms of generalship, I'd put him down in D-tier for generalship, right? Not very good at that. But, here's the crux. Here's the crux. That would all give him an aggregate of A-tier. But here's the crux. Combat. Without Sanguinius' wings, Konrad Curze is the best combat Primarch. Why? He beats Lionel Johnson and Guilliman at once. At the same time. Alright? He doesn't fight Corvus Corax. I don't know why, because he could kill Corvus Corax, in my opinion, right? He beats Vulcan multiple times. Multiple times he beats Vulcan. For fun. Just starts beating him for fun. He thinks it's funny. He just keeps beating him. Duels him, beats him. Duels him, beats him. Constantly, all the time. Right? One-on-one with Lionel Johnson. Without any weapons. He nearly strangles Lionel Johnson to death. And Lionel Johnson is a top-tier combat Primarch. With his bare fucking hands, Konrad Curze nearly kills him. Corswain ends up stabbing him in the back, but, you know, he nearly kills Lionel Johnson. He nearly beats Dorn to death with his bare hands. Dorn's fully armed with his sword, his big massive chain sword. Curze runs over to him and starts beating him near to death. Literally. Dorn is terrified of Curze. There's a short story that I read ages ago about Dorn standing on the parapet of Terra, and he's reminded of Curze by Malcador, and he sort of stammers. He starts stammering. This is Dorn. He stammers. He doesn't want to remember what Curze did to him, and Malcador says he nearly killed you, and he said yes, he did nearly kill me on Sheraut long ago. Yes, he did. Yeah. Right? And Dorn's another nearly top-tier Primarch. He's got wins over Fulgrim, for God's sake. You know? Curze, for me, 3 out of the 4 avenues that we're judging people on, he's S-tier. That puts him on S-tier. That puts him up there. That's where he is. Honestly, that's just where he is. And, hey, my list. Here's what it is. Alright, Lorgar, now. Okay. Here's the thing with Lorgar. He's a bit of a grey area. Because Lorgar is what I would describe as a bottom feeder Primarch. You know? But the parameters of this list mean that he's not corrupted by a demon or anything like that. He's not a demon Primarch when he's at the height of his powers. He's at the height of his powers when he has his psychic powers awakened near the end of the Horus Heresy, right? So technically that's the Lorgar we're going to be judging. If we're judging Lorgar before Monarchia, before his humiliation by the Emperor, he would be down in E tier, easily. He may even be in F tier. He may even be down there, right? But in terms of his overall power level, in being, shall we say, how do we put it? In being, shall we say, an overall Primarch, ascended as well. So this is Lorgar with his psychic powers awakened. He's not a demon Primarch, so he still fits within the rules of this. He would be in D tier. Now, that is where, under the cold light of day, he is. Just as, by the way, in the cold light of day, Russ is probably in B tier. In the cold light of day. He's not, because this isn't the cold light of day. This is Northern Exiles list, and he's in fucking C tier, and that's where he's going to stay. But, here's the thing with Lorgar. In terms of his combat prowess and his generalship, I would generally put him at a C and a D tier, respectively. Right? And in terms of his interest, before everything kicks off, he'd be on E tier, which would put him down on E tier. So C, D, and E for his main things. His combat and his generalship don't get that much better. I would say he goes on to being a B tier combatant. Even with his powers, he's a B tier combatant. And with his psychic powers, that puts him on B tier as well. You know, in terms of generalship, he stays on D. So really, he's on C. He's in the middle ground there. He's in C somewhere there. Now, those are the empirical things that we can talk about. Now we're talking about interest as a Primarch. What interests me as a Primarch? Lorgar is a very, 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 very well-written character with a whole slew of flaws that are in there, right? This is a guy who can be manipulated. This is a guy who essentially is a good person. Lorgar is a good person. One of the nicest Primarchs to normal humans, to everybody around him. One of the absolute nicest. And one of the ones devoid of ego. I'm being honest. I don't get much ego from Lorgar before he ascends to demonhood. I don't. Right? What I get from Lorgar is somebody who wants to have the truth. Somebody who wants to build an ideal world and galaxy for everybody to live in. And that's warped and changed and corrupted and turned against him. Without him even knowing, to put him down the path to chaos. He is a true representation of the tragic nature of Warhammer 30k and 40k both. And for that reason, he's going in B tier. I know. For that reason, He's going in B tier for me. I think if you don't think Lorgar's there, you misunderstand what's cool about 40k and 30k. Right? Categorically. Which will be controversial later. Because later, I'm going to show you a list that was voted on by the community. Alright? That's in another tab. I'll show you that at the end. Where you guys, the wider 40k community, what you think. Where you think these Primarchs should be. But for me, I think he should be in B tier. He represents the tragedy of 40k. And he built 40k. Everything you like about the Imperium, he built. He built that. He built the Ecclesiarchy. The bones upon which the Ecclesiarchy is forged. He built. Without knowing it, but he did. Okay? Most of the cool, stoic shit about 40k, most of the cool, like, you know, absolutely rampant, you know, xenophobic Catholicism of 40k comes from Lorgar. That's where it comes from. And he is a very, very, very good warning against fanaticism. That's what I love about him. He's lovable, he's a good guy, but he's also a warning of why blindly trusting in religion and faith can certainly lead you down some dark paths and make the world a much worse place. I don't think 40k and 30k is anti-religion, by the way. I get that a lot. A lot of people say that to me. It's anti-religion. No, I don't think it is. Because I think the message of 40k and 30k is that a good balance is fine. Having faith is fine. Not a problem. Having a good balance is fine. Being open-minded to other people is fine. Right? It's the fanaticism that's wrong. That's the true message of 40k for me. It's the fanaticism that's the issue. On both sides of the fence. Religious and otherwise. Right? Trusting in technology too much is horrific. And leads to things like the Mechanicus of Mars. Of, you know, the secular Imperium that was very brittle, because it was. The Imperium that the Emperor built was very brittle. That's why it fell, you know. Whereas faith isn't brittle. Faith is something you can build an entire nation on. But if you are fanatical about it, it can lead you down some very dark paths. And that's where we are. And Lorgar is one of those two tenets in a nutshell, which is why I think, for sheer interest as a character, he's in B tier. Everything else, he'd be in D and E. Right? But for sheer interest, he's in B tier. Okay? Cool. Angron's next. Okay. So. Ooh. I really like Angron as a character, but let's do it on generalship. On a generalship, in fact, pre-Imperium Angron was actually quite a decent general, we're told. Again, he's nowhere near the top tier. He's nowhere near Guilliman. Fucking Russ is a better general than Angron, so... Just saying, he's not the worst on this list in terms of being a general. But he's not very good at it. In terms of combat, I would put Angron without the Butcher's Nails near the top of this list. In terms of combat. With the Butcher's Nails, he's too much of a butcher. He's not a duelist, right? He can be led down the garden path. He would get his shit pushed in by people like L. Johnson and Fulgrim and others who are very good duelists. Because they can lead you into a trap. They can lead you into defeating yourself, essentially. In terms of sheer power and rage, yeah, he's S tier. But in terms of the direction of that rage, that means he's not a top tier duelist. He's definitely in that group. He's in that group, and on his day, he could catch somebody off guard and decapitate them. Don't get me wrong. He could beat any combat Primarch on his day. But I'd say 7 times out of 10, or 6 times out of 10, he's being killed by L. Johnson, Sanguinius, Fulgrim, Khan, Curze. They're all beating Angron, unfortunately. Because of the Butcher's Nails. Without the Butcher's Nails, Angron is S tier, and he could beat Curze, Fulgrim, Sanguinius, L. Johnson, no problem, in my opinion. Which is very much why I find my own chapter master in Yosharo Dugal, who is a of course, of the Void Talons, he is a clone of Angron, without the Butcher's Nails. I consider him to be, you know, a hero of the Imperium in the making, going forwards. I've tried to make a new Marneus Calgar with my chapter master here, and I think that the level of the only thing that holds Yashara Dogal back is the fact that he's severely injured, which we will see in a later episode of the Void Talons. He's severely injured, so he can't live outside of his suit, and also he's very inexperienced compared to everybody else. He's only like 70 years old. Do you know what I mean? So as a Space Marine, he's quite young, and but in terms of sheer power and potential, I would say he has the power to beat Guilliman hands down. You know, for going down that road, because again, he's Angron without the Butcher's Nails. So he has all of his strengths, all of his feats, all of that stuff, but without the Butcher's Nails. Right? He's even almost as big as Guilliman. He's a big guy. And so Angron, without the Butcher's Nails, I would put near that S tier list. Without the Butcher's Nails. The problem is, we're not living in an ideal world. And he does have the Butcher's Nails. And he does have things that are wrong with him. He's not a very good general. He's near enough a top tier duelist. But he's dragged down a lot by his own rage and the Butcher's Nails. Now, that puts him in C tier. On empirical evidence, he is in C tier. But I think he is an incredibly interesting character to behold, is Angron. Okay? Very, very, very interesting. You should know, because I use him in my own Space Marine chapter. Or at least a clone of him. He is a tragic character. This is a guy who is meant to be the apothecary of the Primarchs. Yes, this guy was a healer. He was able to take the wounds of others onto himself and heal them up, using his prodigious healing abilities. That's what he did. What a guy. A selfless humanitarian is what Angron was. I know, that sounds weird. His story is incredibly tragic, and I think in all intents and purposes, it gets him from C tier to B tier. I really like Angron, and I really like his story too. I think his story is great and tragic, and again, we're not judging Demon Primarch Angron, but you can just see the nobility is there. You know, the nobility is there. He's not even nasty to any of his subordinates. He just wants to be in the fight. That's where he wants to be, you know? Anyway. Don't get me wrong, if you displease him, he'll cut you in half. But if you don't displease him, and you're good at what you do, he's happy with you. Ferrus Manus. Alrighty. I'm sorry, Iron Hands, but your chapter and Legion is a lot more interesting than Ferrus Manus. Just saying. Your chapter is a lot more interesting than your Legion, and your Legion is a lot more interesting than Ferrus Manus. He's an angry dude who likes to make things because he's got metal hands. You know, again, I'm just saying, all I'm seeing here is a wasted opportunity for me in terms of Ferrus Manus. Just completely wasted. Absolutely. This could have been a guy who, you know, sinks his hands into a piece of technology and just fixes it by just using his own, you know, his own metal to go around it and things. He could have been an absolute beast. The link between the Space Marines and the Adeptus Mechanicus. He could have been the Adeptus Mechanicus's dude, right? The guy, right? Missed opportunities with Ferrus Manus. Again, he dies early. He dies early. That is a problem. That is a problem. But in doing so, he makes one of the most interesting Space Marine chapters in the Iron Hands. Because they are. I just, you know, they pay the price in the Horus Heresy, the Iron Hands, true. But in later settings, they're one of the best. They're one of the best, most interesting chapters. Ferrus Manus himself, Again, very angry, very stupid. You know? Sorry, that's me. Very, very stupid in terms of his, shall we say, his generalship. He's not up there in terms of being a general. He's not, is he? Let's be honest, guys. If he's being a general, he's down here. Well, he would be in D. Right? He would be in D. But because of how stupid he is during Istvan, it would be in E. The guy gets his own legion killed. His own legion's being annihilated, right? Even even before the Dropsec Massacre starts. Even before then. The Raven Guard and Salamanders say to him, pull back, the second wing are coming in. The second wave are coming in, pull back. And he refuses. And they say, listen, you're getting outnumbered and you're getting surrounded. You need to have discipline and pull back. Ferrus Manus ignores them and carries on. He's a terrible general. Terrible general. In terms of combat prowess, he's easily beaten by Fulgrim twice. And this is not Demon Ascended Fulgrim. This is just, you know, look at me with a sword Fulgrim. Again, Fulgrim's one of the top tier Primarchs, don't get me wrong. But in terms of actual combat power, he's not up there. So for me, all in all, before we go into his character, he's an E tier. For me, oh, I don't want to do this. But he's going to have to stay there. He's going to have to stay there. I mean, his death is cool. His death as part of the overall story is cool. But I'm sorry, Ferrus, you're going to have to stay there, my friend. I'm sorry. It's what it is. I don't hate you. I don't hate you at all. I think he's a decent character, but he doesn't get enough airtime because he dies pretty much straight away. Yeah. Yeah, even his Primarch novel didn't do that much for him. Do you know what? I'm going to be that cruel. I'm going to put you in D. I'm going to put you in D there, Ferrus, alright? So, not being that nasty too, I'm going to put him in D. Alright. So, out of mercy, though, you should really be in E. Dorn. Alrighty. Dorn. I have a funny feeling when we get to the scouring part of the novels, of the prehistory Warhammer novels, and we get to the Iron Cage, this man's ability as a general will drop drastically from where I hold them right now. But right now, I would put him as an S tier general, right? And a B tier duelist is where he would be right now. For me, Rogal Dorn. And B tier is no slouch, by the way. That's just outside of the top tier of the top duelists of the Primarchs. He would be there for me. So that would put him in A tier combined. Interest as a character, yeah, I think he is quite interesting. I like his interactions with humans; they're very funny. I like his time in the desert. I've reread, and anywhere else. Now, if you don't know what I mean, when Rogal Dorn teleports onto the Vengeful Spirit, he ends up in some sort of mined desert. And he's there for hundreds and maybe thousands of years, just on his own, wandering around. Now, anywhere else, I would say that's a really good chapter of writing. And really interesting to see where Dorn goes with his mental state, right? Problem is, it happens just at the point where you're thinking, right, we're on the Vengeful Spirit, let's go. Let's see the duel between Sanguinius and Horus. This is going to be great. Right? And it grinds the entire book to a fucking halt. It's terrible, man. In terms of pacing, it's terrible. But that's not what I'm judging on today. We hear a lot more about Dorn there, personally, than we do almost anywhere else. This is a guy who is... he's basically a bulwark. He's a walking castle, is what he is. And I love that about him. I love that he's just very to the point. He's very up and down. You know, there's nothing more to Dorn than that. And that is a good character. That's a well-written character. He has flaws, yes. You know, he can be brittle. He can be very, you know, this is our thing, this is what we're doing. But in terms of being a general, he runs rings around everybody but Perturabo. Everybody but Perturabo, he runs rings around. Alright? And he holds off Perturabo a lot of the time without actually beating him. But Dorn, I'm going to solidly put him in A tier. That's where he's going. I was tempted to put him in B tier, but he's going to go in A tier. Because he does kick Fulgrim's ass, and that was really, really, really funny. Because that was Demon Fulgrim as well, the most powerful version of him, and Dorn just kicks his ass. I quite like that a lot. He also kills Alpharius, but, you know, everybody's killed Alpharius, so who cares? Lionel Johnson. Lionel Johnson. Okay. I really like Lionel Johnson as a character. I think he's very stoic. I think he's a bit of a loner. He doesn't really get people, you know. And he is fanatically loyal. In essence, he is unfeeling. He's a weapon. He's a sword. He's a walking sword. Like Dorn is a walking castle, Lionel Johnson is a walking sword. That's what he is. Right? He's a guy who walks around and is literally the Emperor's last weapon. Last thing that he does. If I need to wipe something off the map, I send the Dark Angels. I send Lionel Johnson. He's got a win over Russ in a duel, which automatically puts him above Russ. So he has to go in B tier in terms of, you know, that kind of a thing. In terms of combat Primarchs, I would put him in the top 4 of the 8. And I would likely put him maybe 3rd. Maybe 3rd. He's pushing it. He's pushing 3rd. But that is near S tier combat Primarch. In terms of being a general, again, near S tier. Near S tier general. Just for the way he organises the Dark Angels, the way that he beat the Rangdan, which is something that nobody thought anybody could ever do, right? The Rangdan were literally going to be just quarantined because nobody could beat them. And then the Dark Angels just go in there with Lionel Johnson. They lose a lot of Marines, but they beat them. They beat them. I would love to see Rangdan models eventually, you know, in the actual setting. They would be powerful as shit. They'd be really, really, really cool. So that's Lionel Johnson, and I think his personality also is the one thing that may drag this down, because as a combat Primarch, A tier, as a general, A tier, right? Pushing S. We're pushing S. We're nearly up here. Nearly. But in personality, it takes us from pushing S to middling A, for me. His personality. He's not that interesting as a combat as a Primarch. His world is. Caliban is. Caliban's great. I've made an entire setting on my own that is kind of like Caliban, because it's just such a cool premise. But that's not the Legion. And that's not the Primarch. So the Dark Angels and Lionel Johnson, I'm going to whack him in A tier. A solid A tier, though. Right, he's not just there, he's solid A tier. That's where he is. Sanguinius. Alrighty. Here we go. Sanguinius. Right away, unlike the others, he goes straight into A tier, and we will see if he goes anywhere else. Sanguinius as a combat Primarch, with his wings, is the best combat Primarch. Again, I said before, without his wings, Konrad Curze is the best. But with his wings, Sanguinius is the best combat Primarch. Bar none. Okay? I think we can all readily agree to that. In terms of his personality, again, essentially, he's a good boy. That's his personality. He's a good boy who wants to do well about the people who are there with him and the people who he's beholden to. Right? He's just a good boy. He's a good angel boy, and that's what he is. He does have a darker side to his chapter and his legion, and the one main thing, again, his legion are one of the biggest offenders of this later on, okay, and maybe even during the Horus Heresy, but memeage, okay? Leman Russ, memeage. Just nonsense. Jaghatai Khan, memeage nonsense. I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up. The Blood Angels are vampires in space, and it really rubs me up the wrong way. It gets right up my nose. I don't like it. I think the Revenant Legion, before Sanguinius got there, was amazing in terms of its lore. And they were just fucking cannibals, and they had a real dark side to them. Then Sanguinius got there and turned them into essentially vampires in space. Which, you know. Again, it's a thing. I don't want to dilute it down to just being that meme. But essentially that's what he did. He made them into good boys. Or mostly good boys, right? And the edge was kind of taken away from them by Sanguinius being there. I think the Legion really spreads its wings, and the chapter spreads its wings when Sanguinius is dead. Which is one of the main reasons why I don't think he'll ever come back, even in spirit form. Simply because the chapter on the Legion is more interesting without him there. It's more interesting with its dark side. With its darkness. You know? Again, the flaws were still there when Sanguinius was around, but he did have a calming influence on the chapter, on the Legion itself. You know? I think they're a lot more interesting when he's dead. And tragic, right? Cool. But in terms of combat Primarch, S tier. Without a shadow of a doubt. In terms of General, I'd put him in A tier. We do see him doing some cool shit. We do see him leading very, 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 very well-timed sorties in the Siege of Terra, right? He's essential in the Siege of Terra. So, yeah, A tier General. I wouldn't put him in the top 4 Generals, but he's just outside of that. No problem with that. He's just outside of it. And what else do we have here? And that's kind of it. Yeah. S tier and A tier for combat and generalship. And in terms of his overall character, that is the thing that I'll mark him down on. Because essentially he's a good boy. You know, every single bit of darkness thrown at him, he rebuffs, which is great. He's a really good example of somebody who's really loyal and stands steadfast in the face of his own death. So, for all those reasons, even though he does have drawbacks, just like Curze, he goes in S tier. Okay? He goes in S tier. Next, Perturabo. Yes! Yes! Okay. Good old Perty. Perty, my favourite Primarch. Oh yes. Absolutely. I'm not actually doing Iron Warriors as my Horus Heresy army, unfortunately. I'm very tempted to, but I kind of want to do Word Bearers. I know that sounds weird, but bear with me, I will get into it another time. Well, Perturabo is my favourite Primarch, so automatically for me, on personal preference, he goes into A tier. But he does have certain drawbacks to his personality. He's very flawed. He's basically a whiny man-child at times. He's very jealous. He's very underappreciated. But he's also the best fucking general of the Primarchs. You heard me. You heard me. You heard what I said. He's number 1 of the generals in terms of Primarchs. Why? Because he wins the Siege of Terra. He doesn't win the Horus Heresy, right? But he wins the Siege of Terra. The Golden Throne is almost overtaken by his forces. So, he's there. He's done it. Right? His mission is to go to Terra and break the largest fortress, the greatest fortress that has ever been constructed in the galaxy ever. And he does. He does just that. He breaks Dawn's defences. He gets his forces all the way through into the inner sanctum of the Imperial Palace. The fact that they then don't go and finish the job is not his fault. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? He literally put the traitors on the threshold of victory and said, there you go, just take that one last step and you've won. I can't take that step for you, you know, take that last step and you've won. No problem. Right? Yeah. I don't know how they're going to get away with it in the Horus Heresy books, but, you know, the Emperor goes up and challenges Horus and that kind of thing, and it's very much a case of, you know, the Dark Angels and Ultramarines are on their way to break the siege, but the siege is done. Perturabo's won the siege. He's broken through the Imperial Palace. They're charging into the inner sanctum, right? That's where the fighting is right now. But his job was to go and break Dorn, to go and break Dorn's palace, to go and break the Imperial Palace, and he fucking did it. He did it. He corralled. He went and beat a fortress like that with an army of fire worshippers and fucking snake eaters. A bunch of mental cultists who can't be controlled. Perturabo beat Dorn with that army. Yeah. He beat it with that army. That thing. All he has is a bunch of farting space marines in the Death Guard. Incredibly good warriors, don't get me wrong. But he's controlling all of these things. And he's playing 3D chess. Or 4D chess. With Dorn. The thing is, Dorn's warriors can be relied upon. Perturabo, it's like he's playing chess on a buckaroo bull. That's what he's doing, you know? Imagine playing chess. Perturabo sitting on one of those bucking bronco bulls things. One of those. And he's playing chess with Dorn. And Dorn is trotting along, walking along on a nice sedate donkey. And they're doing they're playing chess against each other. And Perturabo fucking wins. Yeah. Best general. By far. Horus would not want to go toward Perturabo. Neither would Dorn. As the Iron Cage will highlight later on. Neither will Dorn. And those two are the other two best generals, in my opinion. Guilliman is also an amazing general. He's not come up against Perturabo, though, so I'll be very interested to see what happens if they do. Alright? But Perturabo, for me, is number one in terms of being a leader and being a general. Because even then with Angron, he throws a leash on Angron. Because he beats him through strategy. He beats him down with concentrated fire. This is Demon Angron. Beats him down, and then beats him near to death with his hammer, and says, "Get the fuck back in line before I murder you." That's Perturabo, dude. He's a fucking beast. Right? Absolute beast. He's in S tier. Sorry. He's in S tier. That's where that guy belongs. Very interesting backstory. Okay? Very interesting. Very interesting, underappreciated legion. Wins the Siege of Terra for his side, even though Horus then goes on to lose it through his own stupidity. Alright? Or the vagaries of fate or whatever. Then the Iron Cage incident. Come on, dude. And then if he does become a Demon Primarch, we're led to believe he does it through choice and with Chaos Undivided. So he's not beholden to anybody. He does everything on his own terms. That's what's cool about Perturabo. He's the only Primarch of the traitors who's not beholden to anybody. Go fuck yourselves. I'm Perturabo. That's literally it. Curze is dead, right? Perturabo's like, yeah, go fuck you. I'm Perturabo. That's why. Angron's beholden to Khorne. Fulgrim, don't even get me started. Mortarion, don't even get me started. Magnus, don't even get me started. And Curze is dead. And Alpharius is dead. Perturabo's the only one with free will. Oh, maybe Lorgar. Maybe. Lorgar and Perturabo won the Horus Heresy. They won. They're the only winners of the whole thing. They're the only ones who won. Who got what they wanted. But unlike Lorgar, who walked away, which is why he's in B tier, why he walked away and got it through proxy, Perturabo fucking took it. He took it. I'm gonna beat that siege. I'm gonna smash down that Imperial Palace. I'm gonna beat Dorn twice. Twice. Fair and square. Right? I'm going to beat up Angron. Just to prove my combat chops, I'm going to beat up Angron. And then I'm going to leave. Dude, S tier all day. Fulgrim. The last of our people. The last of our Primarchs. Fulgrim. Again, pre-demon. Pre-demon. Alrighty. Oh, it took a long time to get here. But where are we now in terms of the recording? It's going to be long, isn't it? An hour and 35 minutes, you lucky bastards. Right, Fulgrim. So, combat S tier. Of course, one of the best duelists, probably the best duelist in terms of, you know, being a Primarch. Probably in the top 3, maybe, duelists. A general, no, not for me. As a general, he's in C, because we're not really given any evidence either way. We're not really given any evidence that he's a terrible general, or that he's a good general, so he goes in C. That would put him, before we go into intangibles, whether I think he's cool or not, that would put him around B tier for me. Or maybe B pushing A, or A sliding down to B. He'd be in this area here. He'd be around there. So, for sheer coolness, I'm going to put him in A tier. And the reason why is because of the Fulgrim book by Graham McNeil. I don't think there is a better engineered fall for a Primarch than that one. It has everything, you know. The only difference is I would have the layer blade be house a shard of Slaanesh himself in it, rather than being just a demon. It's a bit weak to get taken over by a normal demon. Bit weak. So I would have it be, you know, Slaanesh himself, who a part of him is in that blade. That's the only change I would make about his fall. His fall was tragic, it was beautiful, and again, the very end of the Fulgrim book at Istvan was brilliantly done. The Legion falls, and it's an absolutely fantastic book. You need to read it. Probably one of the top 3 Horus Heresy books for me. That's why Fulgrim's going in A tier. I like his character, I like his flaws, I like how well written he is. That's where he's going, alright? In terms of combatant, yes, S tier, Primarch, no problem there whatsoever. But in terms of general, he'd be in C. And in terms of how cool he is, I'm going to put him in A. And how cool I think he is as a general. And a Legion as well. The Emperor's Children are a wonderful Legion. A really well-written Legion in terms of how tragic and how much of an insult they are. They're trolls. They're a Legion of trolls because they're Slaaneshi. They are Slaaneshi legionaries. They are literally there to say, we are the Emperor's Children. Go fuck yourself. Right? That's literally what they are. And I love them for it. I think they're great. So, that is my tier list. Now, out of the S tier list, let me decide who the best Primarch is overall. Before the Horus Heresy, before everything kicks off, who is the best all-round Primarch? Alright. I would say it's Curze. Right, straight away, I'm gonna discount Sanguinius. Do you know why? Everybody says it's Sanguinius. Even Horus says it's Sanguinius. So I'm gonna discount Sanguinius. Alright? Let's do something different. I do think it's Sanguinius, probably, you know, but let's do something different. Alright? Let's take him out of the equation. In fact, we could even make a case that he's not actually the best Primarch pre-Horus Heresy. He's certainly the best in combat. He's certainly the best in being a Paragon. But does his Legion have the best record? No. No, the Sons of Horus and Iron Warriors and Dark Angels, and they're all better than Blood Angels, we're told. We're told legitimately they've got more conquests than the Blood Angels. The Blood Angels are actually kind of slow when it comes to conquests. I mean, they're outstripped by at least 5 or 6 legions, you know. So as a Paragon and as a dude, Sanguinius is the man, right? He's the man. But in terms of, like, hard facts that don't care about your feelings, in terms of feelings, yes, Sanguinius is top. But facts? I could discount a few people here. Oh my god, what do I do? So we're gonna discount Sanguinius. Well, here we go. Here's what we'll do. Curze goes first. Why? Because Curze is unstable. Unstable as fuck. He's not going to lead the Imperium. He's unstable as fuck, right? Curze is out the window. Now we're down to Sanguinius and Perturabo. Sanguinius, his combat record speaks for itself. He is a top of a middling legion when it comes to conquests. He's a paragon, all that kind of stuff. I get it. I get why you'd say it's Sanguinius, but I'm going to go with Perturabo. Why? Because his combat record of his legion is similar to the Blood Angels, but he does the jobs nobody else wants to do. And he can corral Chaos Primarchs into a single cohesive army. If he can do that with traitor Primarchs, who are next to insane, and are actual, demon Primarchs, think what he could do as the War Master. Do you know what I mean? Can you imagine Perturabo as the War Master? Yes, his personality leads a lot to be designed, but maybe if he chose Horus as his proxy. So Horus is the one who goes around and tells people what to do, and Perturabo is just the mind behind it, right? I honestly think Perturabo, all round, best Primarch. In terms of being all-round. Okay? A lot of that is my own personal opinion. Okay, please don't jump down my throat. It's my own personal opinion. I think he's the coolest and think he's the best. Right? But I just think... he's not the best combat Primarch. I know that. Don't get blinded by combat, by the way. I mean, if Russ is facing Perturabo, I think Perturabo gives a really good account of himself, but Russ beats Perturabo in a one-on-one fight. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is, Perturabo, in my mind's eye, in that duel, would goad Russ so much. I know exactly the buttons to press to get him to go berserk on him, that he leads him into the middle of the Iron Warriors, and the Iron Circle just pummel Russ into death. I don't think even Perturabo kills Russ himself. He lets his robots do it. He lets his Legion do it. Right? That's what I mean. One army on army, the entire picture. I don't think many Primarchs, if any, beat Perturabo. The entire Legion against the entire Legion. I don't think many people beat Perturabo. I don't. I just don't. Maybe I'm mental. Maybe I've gone crazy. In terms of other things, yes, Perturabo is well outstripped in terms of being a duelist. But he's the best general. He is the best general. And I don't think, in terms of him being a duelist, he's like a 7 out of 10 duelist. He's in the B or A tier of duelists, but he's so far above on S tier and being a general that it makes him the deadliest of them all for me. Like there's just no way you're getting around him. The one thing he does wrong is that he's duped by Fulgrim in the Angel Exterminatus, but even then, he sets it right immediately, and he doesn't trust Fulgrim throughout the entire book. In Angel Exterminatus, he's going on the pilgrimage with him, because he thinks, well, if it is a good weapon, then we may as well have it, and if it's not, I'll just beat the shit out of Fulgrim, and everything's fine. And he does! That's exactly what he does! He goes, oh, you were betraying me, okay, here's a hammer to the face, goodbye Fulgrim's mortal form, and it's gone, right? Literally annihilates Fulgrim's mortal form. Yeah, so Perturabo to me, if you basically make his personality a little bit better, he's the ideal War Master for me. Just a little bit better, He didn't have any friends. That was his problem. He didn't have any friends. But taking that out the equation, because that's not really what we're not going on. Who's the most friendly Primarch here? We're going on, who's the most capable. And in terms of capable, for me, it's Perturabo. Alright, Sanguinius would kill him in an instant. Curze would kill him in an instant. But that's not the only thing we're measuring on. We're measuring on who's the best general, who's the best in terms of their storyline, and who's the best in terms of combat. And in two of those three things, I think Perturabo beats the other two. That's literally all I'm doing it on. In generalship and general story, I think Perturabo, for his accomplishments, beats Sanguinius and Curze. He loses badly in combat, but he wins on the other two forms, so he has to win. Alright? Okay. So, we've had a little look at what I think. What do you guys think? What does the wider Warhammer community think? Let's have a little look-see. Bang. Alright. This is what the wider 40k people think. Perturabo is an A tier. Okay, is an A tier. And so is Curze. Again, this shows you... Let's get that baby out of there. This shows you just how different people's opinions... Why is Magnus an A? Right? Do you know what I mean? I can see why people made these calls, though. I can see why people put these where they are. But I think this is on likability. In all honesty. I think this is on likability. You know, who do you identify with more? This is what this list is. It's very feelings-oriented, this list. Sanguinius and Vulcan. Vulcan in S tier. Come off it. I think that takes the entire list out of it straight away. Vulcan and S tier. I don't think so. Right? So yeah, that's what the wider 40k community thinks. I don't agree. Do you? Where would you put these guys on your own tier list? Maybe do one yourself now. Just having a bit of fun, you know, going over it. Or maybe you want to do your own thing. Horus and C tier. I mean, that says it all, really. Says it all. So, if you think my list is better, let me know. If you think the actual 40k list is better, of what people think are the best Primarchs, let me know in the comment section down below. I have been Northern Exile. It has been a hell of a day. My voice is going. I'm losing it. I love you all a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow for some more Hobby Nightmares. I'll see you then. Have a wonderful day. See you then. Have a good one. Bye now.